Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that, but don't fret. We've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's a new week of CinemAddicts. This is CinemAddicts episode 332. We are covering new movies being released for the week of Friday, February 20th, 2026. The movies include this week Kukuho, This Is Not a Test, The Dreadful, 1 Mile, Chapter 1, 1 Mile, Chapter 2, and last but not least, well, literally
1 Mile,
last,
Chapter
actually.
3. Oh, wait, no.
1 Mile, Chapter 3, 1 Mile, Chapter 4, and last but not least, but actually last, is this movie called Last Ride. Last Ride will be reviewed by Bruce Purkey over Up in the Attic, and he will also have a review of Kokuho and another film which is currently streaming on the Criterion Channel called Happyend. Happyend family show. So, Eric Holmes, how are you doing, sir?
So that's on the Criterion Channel, right? Not the
Criterion Happyend, right?
Okay.
Happy family show, you know what I'm saying? So, right, exactly. Right. Eric got the little joke that I was putting. We're a family show, okay, and we always want a happy end. All right.
Yes.
Yes. It's always good.
Age appropriate, but yeah.
Age appropriate. Yes, we want age appropriate. Well, what is not age appropriate is after this recording, Eric Holmes will be going into the bowels of possible hell, if hell exists on Earth, and the darkness. Where will you be going in about 3.5 hours, Eric? Can you tell our listeners?
I'm going to watch the new Gavin Polone movie written by Andrew Kevin Walker, a script I read about in 2007. And I've been waiting almost darn near 20 years to see the Psycho Killer, and I cannot be more excited. Excited and scared, mostly because I'm like, when you wait for something, because so back 2007, 2008, somewhere around there, I found script. I like 7, like most people do. 8mm was good. I'm just a fan of Andrew Kevin Walker. And I found that he wrote the script called Psycho Killer. And apparently David Fincher was supposed to direct it. And then I think at one point Fred Durst was going to direct it. And then Eli Roth was going to produce it with Gavin Polone. And then Eli Roth was going to direct it. And then Fred Durst was going to direct it again. And then it just went away. But at some point I found the script online and I read it and I'm like, oh, this is so good. I cannot wait to watch this. I think I had read around that time, I'd like started finding scripts online. I think I found Inglourious Bastards when it got leaked. There Will Be Blood. I read that online before the movie came out. And then so I just got in the habit of like, whenever I could find a script online, I'd read the script and then get excited to watch the movie to see like what little differences, the image I painted in my head reading the script and then seeing what the finished movie is like and the changes they made and so on and so forth. It was real interesting to me. And I'd found Psycho Killer and I was like, oh, this is really good. The ending got a little weird, but it was just like really creepy and unsettling the way it was written. And then just nothing happened with it for like the longest time. So I just kind of resigned myself to the fact that, oh, this movie will never get made. But at least the scripts flow. I think you can go on Andrew Kevin Walker's website. I think he has a website where like he's got some of his scripts on there. I think Psycho Killer's on there now. Not 100% sure because it's been years since I looked. But yeah. And then all of a sudden I see a trailer for it. I'm like, oh,
Good trailer.
Oh, they're doing it. And the trailer looked good. And so, that nearly 20-year wait became it's coming out in a couple of months. And no one seems to care but me. So
and Eric's going, Greg, hurry up with CinemAddicts. I got to go right now. I got to see the Psycho Killer. I got to read the script beforehand. Are you going to read the script beforehand, mate? Possibly. You could do that.
Well,
if we wrap up in time, you can do that.
So I don't usually buy tickets ahead of time. I'll just go there and then buy whatever tickets available. But I did check to see, like, went on Fandango or Flickster or something just to see. Right. I looked at the showing I'm going to, and it looks like I might be the only one in the theaters. So I'll be sure to bring a mask with me. So in case someone else sits there, I'll just be sitting there in the back left side corner, just like staring at them the whole time. I won't even watch the movie. I'll just be staring at them, just kind of adding to their experience. But maybe get myself arrested.
Eric, are you a middle of the row guy? Are you one of those people? Oh, okay.
I like sitting all the way to the back and all the way to the left. If I can't get that, I'll try to go all the way to. I like to be on like the extreme back corners.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never done it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why. Well, I definitely don't like sitting up front because my neck hurts. When I was a kid, I
That's
would sit
true.
like all the way up, like all the way
Sure.
up front
Hmm.
every time. And then you get older and your neck starts hurting, and then you realize it's hard to see the screen when you're doing this the whole time. Yeah, it's just better vantage point and that. And I think I've done it before this, but I think this kind of cemented it. Was like after the Columbine shootings. I want to see both exits. So if something
Okay.
happens, I'm
Very
ready for it.
very understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
That's not the reason, but that was like an added benefit to doing something I was doing anyway.
I never understood that. Well, that's very interesting because you could see a very good vantage point from either corner towards the back, bottom
Yeah.
line. And you can actually see the lay of the land of the people who are coming in. And there's no one at your back trying to bother you.
I was sitting kind of on the right side, kind of towards the middle at one point. I think I was watching like one of the Marvel movies. I think it was like Civil War or something like that.
Sure.
And then an alarm went off and my heart started racing. I'm like, I wish I was in the back corner. I don't know what's going on. It turns out it was just a fire drill, like you do in
Sure.
school.
Yeah.
And so we had to leave the theater and then came back in and started the movie over. It wasn't that big of a deal, but that was like one of those things where my started racing. I'm like, yeah, we're just sitting in the back corner every time. I can't do this.
All right, Eric, you didn't mention why you're scared about Psycho Killer. Can you mention why you're scared
Oh,
about?
so well, first of all, the script was kind of creepy because I don't know what the movie's going to be like, but in the script, because I'm sure they've rewritten it since, but in the script, you follow the killer around the entire time. It's almost a first person point of view of the serial killer, or like behind the back, maybe like in a violent nature, something similar to that.
Oh, wow, interesting.
Not in pace, but in the way that they follow the killer around. So
Yes.
a lot of it was exactly what's about to, because you're following the killer around, exactly what's about to happen, but the characters don't. So it's a bomb in the suitcase kind of situation where you're just like, all right, don't go in. Like he's waiting for you. He's waiting for you. And so there's not really any jump scares because you know what's coming, but it's less of a jump scare and more just kind of anticipation throughout the most of it. So that part's going to be scary if they cue to that. But I'm mostly scared because I've been waiting almost 20 years. And if this sucks, I'm going to be heartbroken.
Well, first of
So,
all, if they change the POV, that would be a huge creative choice. And maybe if they change that POV that you were mentioning in the script, that movie might not work with that change. And that could be a huge reason why. Another reason to be scared is there's literally no critical traction on Psycho Killer when it comes out. Well, obviously it's coming out right now. It's out right now. You're going to see it on Thursday. And the fact that they didn't
a
allow,
couple.
yeah, they're not allowing critics to see it, or I don't even know when the embargo is. Obviously, listeners, when you listen to this, this is going to be a Friday or whenever it's an evergreen, hopefully an evergreen listening experience for wherever you are. But right now, as of Thursday morning, there is not a lot of reviews, if any, for Psycho Killer. That
I
makes
don't think any.
okay.
I don't think
That makes
anyone's seen it yet, except maybe the filmmakers. But
that makes me
a
scared. But
little
well,
bit. But we'll
I'll,
we'll see. I mean, we've had movies on here before that we've covered that the embargo was like the date. Like we obviously review the movie before the embargo, but we don't release the review until after the embargo. And the
sure.
embargo is like the day it comes out. And we've had movies where it was like that, and we're watching the movie going, "Why did you embargo this? This is amazing. You should be putting this out there." So I think sometimes they do do the embargo day of because, or don't show it to critics because they don't think the movie's good. Sometimes I think it's just they don't know what they have. And I'm
Sure.
hoping that's the case with this one, but we'll see.
All right. Well, Eric, if you ever want to do a very quick movie review, either out of the theater or at home before you go to work, whether it's 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or 5 hours, you can do it solo. Like
I'm,
maybe
I'm gonna have I'm gonna have to give it a couple days just because when I leave the theater, even if it sucks, I'm gonna tell myself it was awesome because I can't bring
that
myself to
is
say
fair.
it's gonna take a couple, like
That's
if it sucks, it's gonna take a couple of days for it to settle and go, Eric, that wasn't good. You wasted 20 years of your life waiting for this thing for nothing.
that's very
But
honest.
then I might come out and go, holy crap, that was even better than I remember. So then that'll know right away this good.
Or, well, if you say it's better than you remember, Do you
Yeah.
ever get to that point where you watch a movie and you say, "Oh, this is really cool. I love it." And then maybe, like you said, 48 hours later, you're thinking, "Oh, maybe I was just on a different mental level because I'm not liking it as I did 2 days ago." That's never really happened to me, but wonder if that ever happens to you. Whether a
Um,
movie declines in your eyes 48 hours after seeing it.
when I read the There Will Be Blood script, I liked
Sure.
the script better than I liked the movie.
Hmm.
Specifically because they took out one scene. There was one scene where what's the son's name?
I forgot. Yeah.
Daniel
I think.
Plainview and his son. Either way, his son's deaf, and so the guy in the movie, the guy comes in and he claims to be his brother, and he's not.
Right.
And then there's a scene where they're talking, Daniel Plainview and his air quote brother are talking, and they're just having a normal conversation. Well, then they cuts to the point of view of his son, and he's looking at him. He can't hear what they're saying. He can't read lips. All he can understand is body language, and he knows by the body language that this guy, that's not my dad, is no good. And
Right.
he doesn't know how to tell him. So when he goes to sleep, he lights the room on fire. And that part's in the movie. But the reason he lights the room on fire is because he clocked that he was a fraud
Oh,
when
interesting. Yeah.
Plainview didn't see that at all. And it was a really cool, like little cool, detail to have in the script that they didn't have in the movie. But then I saw it, like I was kind of underwhelmed by There Will Be Blood, and then saw it a couple more times. And like most Paul Thomas Anderson movies, it took me a while to warm up to it. But the script I
Mm.
loved right away.
Oh, very, very
I'm
interesting.
trying to
Yeah.
think of one where I read the script and it wasn't good, and then I saw the movie and it was even better.
Yeah.
I don't
And this
think
is
it's usually as good as the script. I can't recall a time where it got better than the script.
And this is my fault. I remember getting the script of Pulp Fiction early, maybe a year and a half before it actually came
You're
out.
like someone dropped the pages and mixed them up.
And I love that script so much because obviously Quentin Tarantino, great writer. And when I saw it in theaters, I was disappointed because it didn't fit the excellent. And that's just a weird channeling because Pulp Fiction now today is considered a classic. It's an iconic film. It's even more iconic than True Romance. Well, back in the day, I read the script for True Romance after watching the movie. I ended up really loving the script, but I really loved the movie. So I think it was more of I'm not as experienced as you as regarding tempering expectations when you read a script and going to a movie. But
This isn't exactly a script, but it's kind of similar to what we're talking about. When Gremlins first came out, I didn't see Gremlins for a long time after. I think the first time I saw it was like when it finally came on HBO. But they had these storybooks that come with a mini record, and you put it on and play the record, and you're reading the storybooks. And I was like hyped as hell for Gremlins. I did not want to see anything more than that, but kids and parents are like, "Oh, you're gonna have nightmares and all that." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's kind of the point." But I was like, I was so hyped for it. And then when I finally got to watch it on whatever I first saw it on, I can't remember. But I already knew pretty much the whole story. I was way hyped for it. And then I saw the movie. I'm like, oh, this is just as glorious as I thought it would be.
oh,
So,
very
but then I've since read the script like years later. And I can't imagine reading the script for Gremlins and then watching the movie when it comes out, because that script and the movie are like night and day different from each other. Like
oh, that's very interesting.
I'd almost like to see someone take that original Christopher Columbus script and shoot it exactly as it's written and shoot that just to kind of, hey, here's what could have been. I think I mentioned that before, but yeah, that if you find you can find the original Gremlin script online, read that thing. It's pretty cool.
Very cool. Speaking of pretty cool, let's see if there's some pretty cool movies out this week for the week of February 20th.
A few
Let
more.
us. Oh, there's a few. Oh, okay. Well, there's a few of them. Eric Holmes, you and I have a couple of movies to review. I'm going to yield the floor to you. What movie do you want us to cover first? You can spend the week. Your decision, sir.
You know what? Let's start with The Dreadful, because I think we're going to do some spoilers on that later on.
Yes.
And this is the one there's a couple parts I kind of needed to hold my hand on because there were some
No
things that were
problem.
unclear to me.
We'll talk about that in
might be
spoilers.
spoilers, but I didn't understand what was happening. So maybe you can tell me why there's spoilers. But
All right. Well, let's start with The Dreadful, which is in theaters, digital, and on demand February 20th. It stars Marsha Gay Harden and Sophie Turner. It's set in medieval England, and what happens is the main character, Anne, played by Sophie Turner, She has a very domineering mother-in-law played by Marcia Gay Harden. The mother-in-law's name is Morwen. Morwen sounds like a witch. That's what I'm going to say about that. Is she a witch or not? Well, we're not going to say if she's a witch or not, but that's the name of Morwen. That's the name of the mother-in-law.
You need a witch in your movie. You get Marcia Gay Harden. She is excellent at that kind of character.
Yeah, whether or not she plays one, right? But she's excellent. Period. Okay, right. So
I would say
I'm not.
She's definitely a witch, whether it's a supernatural witch or a regular human woman that you might call a witch.
Fair. That is very, very fair. Also, if you are a fan of Game of Thrones, I don't know if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, Eric, if you ever watched that series. I did.
I've seen an episode.
Okay, you've seen an episode. Well,
yeah.
If we're Game of Thrones fans, I think The Dreadful will be a welcome because it also stars Kit Harington, who worked with Sophie Turner. They played siblings in The Dreadful. Kit Harington, however, is not a sibling here. He's a prospective. Well, Kit Harington, he plays a person who comes back from the war. He's a childhood friend of Anne's, and he has some really bad news, and this is not a spoiler because this is part of the plot synopsis. He has some bad news for Anne. He comes back from the war without Anne's husband, Seamus. Seamus has died in the war, and he's telling her he's obviously not coming back. And what happens with Kit Harington's character is he tries to ingratiate himself into the life of Anne. The only problem is Morwen, the mother-in-law, is very overprotective over her daughter-in-law. She wants to live, I guess, the rest of her days with her daughter-in-law because obviously her son's passed away. And the only family she has left is her daughter-in-law. Her daughter-in-law, again, played by Sophie Turner, who is Anne, is torn because her husband's dead. She wants to have children and a life of her own. And her best prospects is the Kit Harington character, who's a childhood friend. So maybe there might be a level of trust there. Whereas, and let's go back to Morwen. Morwen, her main focus is for her and her daughter-in-law to survive. Whether it's the winter, the spring, the summer, they just need to survive on a day-to-day basis. And Morwen will do whatever it takes to keep this two-person family unit alive. Let's just say we'll do, again, whatever it takes to put food on the table, to make money, and she will do anything. Yes, Eric.
I think it might be a little more than that because I think that because Sophie is her son's wife,
right? Yeah,
and then I think the idea of her seeing any other man is kind of she didn't like that. Whether it's because maybe it's like you told me he died, but I'm not believing it. Or as soon as you start seeing someone else, then that closes the book on my son being alive or dead. I think there's a little a little bit of denial on her part about her son's death.
Interesting, yes. And we forgot to mention a couple of the elements, Eric. At least I did. First, there's an element of Christianity, Catholicism in The Dreadful. We start off in the first act with these two women praying in the church, and then they're taking the walk home. So there's a little bit of that religious element to it. There's also a big supporting character in The Dreadful is a mysterious knight who just pops out of nowhere in this small village or in this small coastal town. And you're wondering, a couple of times when the knight appears, there's either a mist behind the knight. Is the knight a ghost? Is the knight really there? Is the knight threatening the lives of these people in this coastal place in England? Yeah. All of those questions.
Well, they also open the movie with that, with a little quick thing of the history, or like a loose history of this. Not so much the knight, but the armor itself.
Right.
That the armor, and like it's kind of like not completely dissimilar than the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. But instead of a ring, it's a knight helmet and knight armor.
Yeah, and the movie... Yes, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, I was going to ask, we can cut this and save this for a spoiler if it is, but there's someone gets washed up on shore, and that happens pretty early. Is that...
Right. No, I don't think that's
Is that something we can talk about, or is that something we got to save for spoilers?
Will it add to the review, you think, if you want to mention the person who's washed up on shore?
I was just confused about what that is. And I thought it had something to do with sort of Morwen and Anne's, collecting things and,
yeah, we could, I think we can.
For...
Okay, we can talk about that in spoiler, but yeah, there are individuals who wash up on the shore. And again, this coastal setting is far away from, I guess, a lot of parts of civilization, because all we see in this narrative are their small ramshackle house, and then also the church, and then the little road or the little pathway to get to the church. It's a very small movie set amidst a very interesting visual canvas. Because there's a lot of nature. There's the ocean, the crashing waves, and there's the mountain or the hill terrain area. Very interesting visual movie, written and directed by Natasha Kermani. Eric and I, if I recall, we both really enjoyed her previous effort,
Yes.
Abraham's Boys. Eric,
Yeah.
I've been speaking too much. Your review, and were you pleasantly surprised by The Dreadful?
This is one I got sent like a trailer, watched like 30 seconds of the trailer, turn it off. I'm like, nope, I'm just watching this. This looks cool. This was a lot slower than I kind of thought it would be, but it looks cool. The supernatural or imaginary, whatever that night is, the whole night presence is really cool. The love story is like, I get it, but anytime I started delving into the love story, I'm like, get back to Marcia Gay Harden. I want to see her freak out.
I'm not going to argue with you on that. I'm not going to argue because
Marcia
remember,
Gay Harden,
what's the best part of the Day Trippers, Eric?
Marcia Gay Harden.
And how long is the movie?
For 5 seconds. She's in the movie for 5 seconds, and I'm watching that going, what the hell are you doing? You got like 3 hours, and you keep her for 5 seconds, whatever. But yeah, Morwen doesn't mess around. Like, she's very opinionated, and she gets things done. And yeah, her character. I mean, Morwen is probably like a distant ancestor of Miss Carmody from The Mist. They're kind of.
Oh, very good, Eric. Yes,
very related in that respect. It gets slow here and there, but the mystery of what the night is, and then some other things we'll talk about in spoilers, ends up kind of cool. I would say as a follow-up to Abraham's Boys is kind of a step down, because I like Abraham's Boys a lot better. But
right.
This is not bad. It's just when you set the bar here and you make it here, it's still good, but it's not where you were.
That's fair. Yeah, I really enjoyed Abraham's Boys. I think you and I did a spoiler on that as well, because there's Abraham's Boys, when you finish the movie, there's a lot to chew on regarding Van Helsing and Dracula and fractured families and all that stuff and accountability. I think Natasha Kermani is dealing with some not similar themes, but this movie is on a level. It's a slow burn thriller, okay, possibly a horror film, but then there's a lot of ideas percolating in The Dreadful. I also forgot to mention it is inspired or loosely inspired by a story, the Onibaba story, which is a 1964 Japanese horror film that is considered a classic. And that 1964 film is also based on a very old folkloric tale.
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes is giving it currently, as of this recording, Eric, 55%. Too low for you? What do you think?
I can see that, because 55%, movies like that are usually people that really love it and really hate it. And I can see people going both ways on this. I'm kind of sort of in the middle, leaning more towards liking it. But I think the main drawbacks are, and we'll talk about more of this in spoilers, but there's some stuff that happens in this movie that kind of come out of nowhere. And they're not like big events, but they're like kind of mundane events. But I get lost a lot. Like a character does something, and I'm like, wait, what just happened there? And then they just move on from that. Or a character will pop up, and then like this character is supposed to be important, but then they disappear. I'm like, okay, I didn't quite understand. And so that's why I would say when we get to spoilers, I'm going to be having you hold my hand a lot, because I'm going to have so many questions. Hopefully.
No, it's good. No, it's going to be a really good discussion.
Yeah, there's definitely a bunch of stuff in The Dreadful where I was just kind of scratching my head, and I was like, oh, well, I get the broad strokes of it at least. But yeah, visually it looks good, and it's good. Just, I mean, Abraham's Boys is pretty great. I love that movie.
I'm going to replay a note that you mentioned. Marcia Gay Harden.
Yes.
Huge role in this movie until there's a section when she's not in it, and Eric alludes to a love story in this between the Sophie Turner and Kit Harington character. Whenever they're on screen without Marcia Gay Harden, the movie drops, okay? And the reason why, it's not a fault of the director or the story, because whenever Marcia Gay Harden is not in a scene, whether or not she's in a movie, it drops anyway. She's just always, she is a shining light of talent, and she's amazing in this movie. Eric mentioned there are things that happen out of nowhere. There are things,
Jake,
and this is not,
and I love you too. Just have Marcia Gay Moran come in and go, y'all two making love, are ya? I'm your mother. I'm gonna watch you make a love.
well, she has a very chewy role, very scenery chewing role in The Dreadful. I think she's terrific in this movie. Sophie Turner is overshadowed by Marcia Gay Harden, but in all fairness,
everyone's overshadowed by Marcia Gay Harden in this.
And yeah, exactly, Eric.
The mysterious night is overshadowed by Marcia Gay Harden in this.
Not going to argue, but again, not a fault of the director or the story, because she is such a, in my opinion, and I think in Eric's opinion, she's such a towering presence of talent and charisma and just great. So I think just based on Marcia Gay Harden, this movie, I'm going to be very biased right now. This movie automatically gets at least 1.5 to 2 stars because Marcia Gay Harden. And one of the many regrets I have in life is I haven't gone on IMDb and I haven't really watched everything that Marcia Gay Harden has done. That is a huge bucket list I need to do. I think I learned this when Eric and I, and of course Bruce covered it as well, but when Eric and I talked about the date.
She's got 127 credits, so good luck with that.
Oh, okay, do not incite me. I might just quit CinemAddicts to go on a Marcia Gay Harden spiritual trek, Eric. I will tell you this, though. I realized how important Marcia Gay Harden was to me in my natural viewing life when Eric and I talked about The Day Trippers, because The Day Trippers, I forgot, did you like The Day Trippers or were you mixed on it? You were okay with it, right? You were fine.
I thought it was fine, but I mean, I definitely liked her part in it. Overall, it was certainly a dated movie.
Okay, well, I think, okay, so I gotta really rewatch that review. I really love The Day Trippers. All that said, the best part of The Day Trippers, for me, is Marcia Gay Harden. And it doesn't make sense because, like Eric said, she's in it for 5 seconds. I really love the movie. So once I realized that, I go, wow, she's great. And she's great in The Dreadful. The movie, I think there's a lot of question marks that Eric and I will talk about regarding the spoilers. For some reason, this movie just aligned with my personal tastes. The composer in this movie, Jamal Green, the score, I love the score. It perfectly, sometimes a score will be background music for a narrative, which is fine, or it might be score is mixed in with a bunch of needle drops. For me, the score to The Dreadful is perfect. If it's out on vinyl or CD, or I hope it's on Spotify, I'm going to definitely download it. Again, the composer is Jamal Green. Really love the score to The Dreadful. Eric said the movie looks good. It looks good. Yes, it does. I agree. And the performances were really good, especially by Marcia Gay Harden. And I really love the way the movie ended. And yeah, props to Sophie Turner and Kit Harington as well. 94 minutes, rated R, in theaters, digital, and on demand, February 20th. Rotten Tomatoes gave it 55%. I liked it a bit more than Eric. My personal rating, 4 stars for The Dreadful. Eric Holmes, final thoughts and your rating for The Dreadful.
I'm probably at 3 stars on this. Maybe a spoiler talk could bring it up more, but then again, spoiler talk may bring it down a bit. Okay. 2 of those stars are definitely Marcia Gay Harden specifically, but yeah, I think Marcia Gay Harden's great in it, and I think it suffers a bit from just some stuff just wasn't completely clear, and I got a bit lost. And the fact that this filmmaker's previous effort was so damn good, I loved it so much that this was kind of a bit of a letdown from there. But okay. I mean, hey, going from 3 stars, still recommend.
Still a recommend, Eric. So that's very good. So both Eric and I recommend The Dreadful. Check it out. Tell us what you think of this movie. If you are one of the 55% in that rating who agree that it doesn't work for you. But do you think this movie is a very specific movie? I really enjoyed it because you mentioned it's a little bit of a slow burn. People, do not watch it. Do not watch The Dreadful, Eric. If what?
I would say that there's going to be some stuff that pops up that's just going to confuse you. Or you're going to be like, wait, what's that? Ignore it and just move on.
Okay.
Because I've rewound the movie a couple of times. Like, wait, I missed something? You didn't miss anything. Just move on, and it'll make sense. I will say that the writer director Natasha Kermani. They're great at this sort of, because Abraham's Boys had kind of the similar sort of setting, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, these kind of period, because honestly, like this kind of period is like whenever they do period pictures or like the gothic setting or whatever, it can be fun in horror, but usually it's like this is like the boring version of horror. But I mean, they got that kind of gothic setting nailed down.
Yeah.
And so if Natasha Kermani, for instance, was going to do a Frankenstein movie or a Dracula movie or something like that, I'd be like, oh yeah, sign me up. Well, she did a Dracula movie, Abraham's Boys, but you know what I'm saying?
Right. No, of course. Yeah.
Like anytime there's like a gothic setting or a medieval setting and Natasha Kermani is behind it, I'm probably going to be at the very least interested.
I'd love to see a Natasha. I know you and I don't watch a lot of long form television shows. I wouldn't mind seeing a long form Natasha Kermani TV series or miniseries. She'd be really good at that because Abraham's Boys, it could be really built out. She could really build out story.
Greg, I gotta go to the theater to watch a Psycho Killer, and then Project Hail Mary is gonna come out. I'm gonna have to watch that at least 3 times a day. I don't have time to watch a whole series.
That is fair.
I got very important things to do.
Very important things to do. Okay, so that is our review of The Dreadful. Speaking of important things to do, some of us love taking tests. Some of us don't really like taking tests. Well, considering this review, this is a movie review. This is not a test. This is not a test. What is it? It's based on a best-selling novel from Courtney Summers. It runs 102 minutes. It's written and directed by
called Night of the Living Dead.
Oh no, no, I don't. Very good, but
it's called Dawn of the Dead. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, rim shot.
Go on.
I gotta find the rim shot. Written and directed by Adam McDonald. Out February 20th in theaters. It stars Olivia Holt, Froy Gutierrez, and Kurt Cortina. The plot synopsis is: Sloane and a small group of her classmates take cover in their high school to escape their suddenly apocalyptic hometown. As danger pounds on the doors, Sloane starts to see the world through the eyes of people who actually want to live and take matters into her own hands. This sounds interesting. Eric made a rimshot joke about Night of the Living Dead or Return of the Living Dead, saying it's a zombie. It's a zombie movie, right, Eric?
This movie's completely derivative, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Oh, all right. Okay. This is not am I missing something by not watching This Is Not a Test? So what is your review of this movie?
I mean, the review is, what did you think of Night of the Living Dead? What did you think of Dawn of the Dead? Specifically, Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. The movie starts off great because it's kind of like just kind of, hits the ground running almost immediately. And then the girl, her family dies. I think it's her mom outside or something, breaks in. The dad kills her sister. Somewhat, either way, the dad gets bit, and then eventually she ends up at the high school with some other high school kids, and then now they're trapped in this high school with like a bunch of zombies outside. So if you've seen Dawn of the Dead, you've seen Night of the Living Dead, you know the setup. It's also got a little bit of The Thing in there because in The Thing, there's a situation of, are you the thing? Am I the thing? Who's the thing? And so there's paranoia there. There's a little bit of paranoia, but it's not necessary. There's a bit where it's, are you turning into a zombie or not? But it's less of that and more that people just don't quite trust each other for other reasons, different social reasons and whatnot. But yeah, it's pretty good. Is
it gory? Is it a pure gory movie, or is it more of? Oh,
yeah. I mean, there's scenes where zombies bite people, and you get to see like chunks taken out of their arm or whatever.
Zombie fans will like this movie. Zombie movie fans will like This Is Not a Test, or is it?
This is a little closer to something like Night of the Living Dead, where the zombies aren't the showcase here. It's the characters trapped inside the house, or in this case, the characters trapped inside the school. That's the draw to this. The zombies are what was it? Queens of the Dead. Similar to that. Like the zombies aren't the draw. It's the characters that are trapped inside. In the case of Queen of the Dead, they're fun characters that are funny and you like to watch interact. And if they get killed, it's like, oh, that sucks. I miss them. This one takes itself a lot more seriously. So it's not. I mean, it's definitely. I'm trying to think of anything funny that happened. Maybe like one or two small things, but mostly this is kind of serious business throughout the whole thing.
Do you care about the characters? Are they interesting or
You
sympathetic
do,
enough?
but it's not. I just brought it. I just say that because I brought up Queens of the Dead, and that movie's funny, and this one is not. They're kind of the same story, but they take different tones. Each one of them do, and so you still care about the characters. Some of the characters you kind of want to choke and go, "What the hell are you thinking?" But overall, it's pretty decent zombie movie, and yeah, it's got elements of The Thing. It's got elements of all the George Romero zombie movies, specifically the ones where you're trapped inside an area and zombies are outside. I even caught a couple of things of a couple of bits of like I Am Legend in there, which, you know, might be a bit of a spoiler, but it comes with the territory when we're talking about zombie movies, even though I Am Legend's about vampires, but whatever. But yeah,
Oh, so how
this
was the
is
third? How was the
this is
execution
not
in
a
the?
test.
Yeah.
If this is a real thing, I think they passed.
Oh, very good. Here comes sounding like a movie critic right there.
There you go.
What is your rating on This Is Not a Test?
I'll go 4 stars on this.
Oh,
I was kind of
excellent.
debating on 3.5, but I think there's like this is one of those like I'm watching it going, okay, I've seen this before, and then get done and was like, yeah, I've seen it before, but it was a good version of that thing that I've seen before. And then I'm thinking more
Mhm.
about it. I'm like, I wouldn't mind watching that one again. And also it's based on I guess a YA novel,
Mhm.
maybe a YA novel. It sounds like it is, and the movie definitely lends itself to sort of the YA tropes. But yeah, if you're a fan of zombies, you're a fan of Night of the Living Dead, The Thing, and you're like, I like all those. I'd like to see a YA version of it. Bam, here you go. They made it for you.
Speaking of stuff that this is going to be a bad transition, but I want to apologize to the people over at the Cinematics Movie Club, created by Mitch Burns. I haven't been on that thread for 2 months, Eric, and I think this week you guys are covering Spontaneous. Is
Yes,
Spontaneous a movie that you really love as well?
Spontaneous is really good. I haven't rewatched it for the movie club yet. I'll probably do that probably tomorrow. But this, so Spontaneous is a little more light than this one is because
Mm,
Spontaneous is definitely like dark, but it's got a lighter energy to it. But this actually wouldn't be a bad double feature with Spontaneous.
okay, very, very
Yeah.
good. That's
I just to be clear, Spontaneous is better than this, but they're kind of they're playing in the same ballpark, I think.
okay, very, very good. That is 4 stars from Eric Holmes for This Is Not a Test in theaters February 20th. And yes, if you want to be part of our Cinematics Movie Club, first of all, join our Cinematics Facebook group, and then you can go into a different portal and enter the
And don't recommend
Cinematics.
YouTube videos or Mitch will kick you out of.
Very, very good. We love you, Mitch Burns, and I apologize for not being part of the club for a couple months. Me. I just for some reason I don't know why I'm not doing because I'm an idiot. So I will be back I think this weekend for the spontaneous talk on in about a day or so. But yeah, spontaneous also has some really spontaneous explosions. Let's just say regarding that movie. But check out This Is Not a
It's a
Test.
very explosive movie.
And very literally very a rip shot. All right, let's go from This Is Not
And
a Test.
actually, I just remembered the ending of Spontaneous.
Mm,
I gotta watch it again to make sure that it's in my head it ends in a certain way and then credits roll.
yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, "Ooh, that's such a good ending." I have to watch it again to see if I just imagine that or if that's actually in there. But yeah,
Very, very interesting. So Eric's gonna do a rewatch for that.
stuck the landing from what I can remember.
Yes, yes. All right. So, well, yeah, I think I haven't seen Spontaneous, so I think I'm going to see it this weekend for the Cinematics Movie Club. Finally, our last thing to cover this week, at least for me and Eric. I know, Eric, you have a couple of recommends. Can we
Yeah.
put them off to next week because you're doing Psycho Killer and we're going to do a spoiler for
Oh,
the
I
Dreadful.
can go through the recommends real quick.
All right. All right.
After this? They're real brief ones.
Okay, very good. 1 Mile, Chapter 1, 1 Mile, Chapter 2. This will be a brief review, in my opinion, because well, I'll
Well,
tell
first of all, how do you talk about chapter 2? Because
you know.
anything you
I
say
guess.
about chapter 2 is a spoiler to chapter 1.
Well, can we just talk about it as one big movie? The one big 1 mile. 1 mile. Well, yeah, it's weird. You can't. Eric's correct.
I'd say let's. I will say this: chapter 2 is follows up with what happens in chapter 1. Obviously, similar tone, kind of different ish setting, but I think we should focus more on chapter 1. And then if they like that, then whether or not you think they should jump to chapter 2, which I think if you like chapter 1, absolutely jump to chapter 2.
And well, okay, the plot summary is very, I think, simple in a good way.
Yeah.
It's centers on a former special op forces guy, army veteran he's retired,
As they all do.
as they all do. Ryan Phillippe is
If they don't center on a special op person, why the hell are you even watching it?
Why are you watching this? Right. So very good. So Ryan Phillippe he's a guy who knows a thing or two about combat. It's special forces, army vet, retired. The problem is
he was in One Shot, so obviously.
right, of course he was in One Shot. Very good. We love the One Shot films. But Danny, with all his dedication to being an army guy, now that he's retired, he gets to spend some quality time with his daughter, Alex, played by Emily Hooferly. I mispronounced the name. I apologize for that. But the problem is he's a bit estranged from his daughter because we're assuming all of these missions took him away from his family for possibly months, if not years. So at the beginning, when he sees her at, I believe, does he see her at a soccer game? Or whatever. She's an athlete, and his job is to escort her to a bunch of college visits, because she is looking for a college to go to. And Alex is not too fond of this because she hasn't really gotten a lot of quality time with her father. So it starts off with them being at a little bit of loggerheads. The ex-wife is played by Sarah Canning. She's Janine. She is the one devoted parent in the film, and she's a little bit more. I'll just say this without giving too much away. She's a little bit more. You'll get to see a little bit more of Janine in chapter 2. And Eric, I'm going to ask you a quiz. Sarah Canning is the actress who played Janine. Have you ever seen Sarah Canning before? Did she look familiar to you?
The fact that you're asking me that means yes. I'm trying to
look. She was in a movie called Shaman in 2025. I think he played one of the parents who supposedly lose a kid in the cave, and it's this Ecuadorian volcano. They must come to terms with their own faith. And
the only thing I really remember from Shaman is the cool old guy.
Yeah, the cool old
murked in there. But spoiler alert.
How dare you? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, but that was cool. Yeah,
but that guy was that would be a guy I would awesome. Remember. And Shaman was cool, but I would never.
But she was one of the leads in Shaman. I just wanted to throw that out there because Eric and I ended up talking about that movie, and yes, the best part of that movie was that character actor who was playing this very interesting person. Now, regarding 1 Mile Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, so Danny takes his daughter Alex. They go off to these recruiting trips. One of these times is he and his daughter, they sort of go on this outdoorsy area, which is a campsite to rest. But when they go in this campsite, they realize there's a bunch of mysterious strangers around them. And then these mysterious strangers don't become mysterious anymore because they're out to hunt them down. And why are they out to hunt them down? You'll eventually find out because the leader of this
really cool truck, and we're going to take it.
Yeah, they take the truck, Eric, and they try to hunt them down. But the problem is, like Eric was mentioning, Danny, well, he is a very skilled fighter. And thanks to his skill, they're able to evade, if not take down, a bunch of these quote unquote bad men. The leader of this clan.
This is why CinemAddicts is a service to you, because these characters don't watch movies. They had no idea. They've never seen One Shot. They had no idea that Ryan Phillippe was an ex-CIA, blah blah blah, and could beat the crap out of every one of you. Had they listened to our podcast, they would know to kidnap someone else. By the way, don't kidnap anyone ever. But if you have to, definitely don't do Ryan Phillippe from One Shot with his daughter, because it will not end well with you. Unless your kidnapping team involves
C. Thomas Howell. Who plays Stanley Dixon. He is a leader of the clan. A lot of you guys know for C. Thomas Howell from The Outsiders. What else? Soul Man, Dawn. Right, Soul Man. I still haven't seen.
We'll go with Red Dawn.
Yeah. It's funny because I interviewed C. Thomas Howell a couple of days ago, and I asked him a movie from his resume that he would want people to see. He did not mention Soul Man. He mentioned this movie called That Night, a movie that I love. But I really like C. Thomas Howell from this TV series called Southland. very good actor, and he's very good in this movie. Stanley Dixon, he has this as a leader. There's a reason why they are hunting down men and women. Men, let's just say the men that they hunt down are not that useful to them. The women that they are hunting down, there's a reason why these mysterious and evil men want these women in their clan. And we're not gonna do a spoiler on this, but I think you guys can add two and two together. But yeah, that is the premise for 1 Mile Chapter 1, and then the continuing story, 1 Mile Chapter 2. Movies directed by Adam Davidson, whom Eric interviewed earlier this week, and that interview is in our previous Hodgepod episode, this week's Hodgepod episode, or our CinemAddicts YouTube channel. Eric, your thought on both of these movies? I think we're going to rate them as one big movie.
Yeah, well, so I guess the first one I liked because it was just real simple and I like the setting. The second one was still good. I thought the second one was like a little lesser than the first one because like the first one was just all meat and potatoes. The
Right.
second one's kind of
A continuation.
It's continuation, but I think you're getting a lot more like backstory and character stuff in the second one.
Sure.
And all right, I don't think this is a spoiler. It was just a kind of a weird thing that happened. But in the second one, someone goes into like unlocks a shed. Someone, I've been waiting for you this whole time. I'm like, why? But yeah, I think the first one's definitely certainly like meat and potatoes. Like it's got the setup, and then it's like got the kind of straight ahead sort of action thriller element that I like. Good setting. I mean, look, I don't know where they shot it, but they could have easily just shot this up in like Pikes Peak or something. And
They shot it in Vancouver Island, over in Vancouver
yeah.
Island. Yeah.
But yeah, it looked good. The second one was kind of like a little more. The second one basically is like if you watch chapter one, and it's like that was kind of cool, and then you take like take like a day off, go to work or whatever. And it's like then you're thinking that it's like that 1 mile was pretty good. Oh, you know what? Second one's out. I'll watch that one too.
Yeah.
And
What
then just
happened to
watch
these
that,
people? Right. I wonder what happened to these characters. Well, you're gonna find out with
Not
number two.
not so much what happened to them. I mean, it'll definitely give you that, but I think it has kind of a similar tone, although not as good. I don't think I like the first one a lot more, but the second one's got like a similar like I could go for another one of those, and bam, it's right there. Just watch it.
What? That's interesting. Are you gonna give them two separate ratings
I think
or one big
overall,
rating?
it's I would say the first one's 4 stars, the second one's 3 stars, but like together, probably 3.5, I think.
I was gonna go 3.5 stars for both of these
Yeah.
movies because it's a meat and potatoes thing. You're gonna get the propulsive. They're being chased in the part one, part two, like Eric said, which was he did really a great job on the spoiler, not saying any spoiler stuff. You get more of the backstory about what are the motivations of the C. Thomas Howell character and his clan, what are their purposes, and then you have sort of a chess match between Danny and the bad guy, basically mano y mano, C. Thomas Howell versus Ryan Phillippe. I will say this regarding the ending of chapter 2. There's that inevitable showdown between the good guy and the bad guy, and the way it comes out, it's executed is interesting. I like the ending of chapter 2 because I wasn't expecting it to end this way. Also, you have to understand between these two movies, there is Eric, when he interviewed Adam Davidson, he was mentioning Adam's been doing a lot of TV movies, TV series over his career. And this movie has that TV movie element to it. A lot of people might find that negative. I don't. I find it to be a really solid action thriller. And that actually fits two movies because each of them are different. I thought it's a very solid experience
I
for
could
me.
actually see this like in the 80s or 90s, like the 1 mile, 2 hour or 2 night special or whatever, when they used to do.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
we talked about intensity on the show before, and that's what that was. It was like a 2-3 part miniseries or whatever. And it was like
Right.
it was like a big deal. Like I could see that. I mean, that's not really a thing anymore because they just put it on streaming, so it doesn't have that same kind of fanfare that they would, when they had TV channel. I mean, they still have TV channels, but no one watches them. But yeah, this would have been like, actually, you know what? My if we're looking at it in the context of like a 90s 2-part miniseries on like CBS, this is like a 5-star movie. like in that context.
Within
But
that
in the
context,
context of what we're seeing now, it's what I said it was. But
right.
yeah,
So
I didn't even put that together. But now that you say that, I'm like, this would have been awesome, like in the '90s, in that context.
right, and I think this is what the movie goes for. If you are expecting, Eric mentioned one shot. If you are expecting something like a one shot, yeah, you're not gonna get that because that's a 6.9 star
That's not
banger.
fair. One
I
shot's
know you're
brilliant.
brilliant. You're right. Again, like Eric said, it's not fair, but I'm gonna I'm gonna go on this unfair route by
That's what I'm
saying
saying. The movie's not Gremlins, but it's like, well, it's the best movie ever made. Of course, it's not that.
I will continue my unfair track by saying there is a little bit of this movie reminded me of the Walter Hill classic Southern Comfort because of the clan
Oh
involved, right? And again, it's unfair, but
no, no,
it
that's a great comparison. Obviously, like, yeah, Southern Comfort's definitely a better movie, but man, that's a good comparison. Or like Commando, but like the parts of Commando at the beginning before like they get on
yeah,
the airplane and all that
yeah, I
craziness.
love Commander.
What the hell's happening to the camera? How do you get
I
rid of
know.
this?
No, no worries. I don't know. Don't worry about it.
Uh,
It's all good. It's all good,
uh,
Eric. But yeah, Southern Comfort. If you guys have not seen Southern Comfort, that movie is just, again, Eric's going to disagree with me. We both love the movie. It's my personal favorite. I think Eric's personal favorite is Streets of Fire. I'm guessing here on that. But yeah, I love Southern Comfort. And it's not fair to
dude,
mention,
I'm not gonna crap on Southern Comfort at all. That movie.
dude,
And also
Powers.
you're also talking about best Walter Hill movies. It's like they're all great.
Exactly.
It's just what level of greatness is it at?
Well, I remember a couple years ago, all three of us reviewed Dollar for the Dead, and we were a bit mixed on it. I liked it more than I
Uh,
believe you and Bruce, but again, on the rewatch, I'm sure it's better. There is an upscale when you watch Dollar for the
yeah.
Dead, and I mean, we love Walter Hill. And please, I need more money to get some kind of Southern Comfort deluxe Blu-ray
You,
edition.
you know, what I think the problem with Dollar for the Dead is, or Dollar,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that
think
one.
that's what it's, yeah.
And it's the same problem that I think Joe Dante has with his later movies. Like they're still good, but now they're shooting on digital, and
That's fair.
they always look flat. There's certain newer filmmakers, they've grown up on digital so they can make it look cinematic or whatever. But you have like older filmmakers that have been shooting on film their whole lives, and then they kind of like go away for a bit and they come back and, oh, we're not shooting on film, we're shooting on digital, and it always looks flat. I
I know.
suspect that they don't know the new medium, or they don't know how to use the new toy, so to speak.
Right.
Because like like you look at Southern Comfort, it's like gritty, grainy looking, but it looks cool. And then you watch Dollar for the Dead, and it just looks like super crisp, but like flat. And
Yeah.
so you don't have that grittiness that the other Walter Hill movies have, because it's it just didn't look the same. It didn't have
It's
the
a
same.
different form. You're right. Yeah, but and then the other side of that is, of course, any Walter Hill film, even if it's digital and flat, is welcome because it's Walter Hill.
Yeah.
But like Eric said, I'm not
But
disagreeing. It's not going to be on that filmic
the whole
level.
reason the whole reason I bring this up is once you like and subscribe and make me, Greg, and Bruce millionaires, we're going to take those millions of dollars and give it to Walter Hill and go, here, make another movie. Nah, not so fast. Here's your film stock. Here's your film camera. You're doing this shit old school. It's family show. Sorry about that last one.
No, it's all right. No problem. I agree. We love Walter Hill, but we also enjoyed 1 Mile Chapter 1, 1 Mile Chapter 2. In fact, Adam Davidson mentioned when he was speaking with Eric, he mentioned the movies Death Wish and Walking Tall. He mentioned those
Yeah.
movies from the 70s. There's a little bit of a spirit of all of these influences we mentioned. It's a solid action thriller, 3.5 stars, worth watching if you're a fan of C. Thomas Howell and Ryan Phillippe. It's a good, solid cheeseburger eat of a film on digital, February 20th.
I was actually about to bring up the interview because like all the movies he brought up were like that's like perfect double feature. And they mentioned that's perfect triple feature. Ooh, quadruple feature. Ooh, quintuple feature. Yes, let's do all that with 1 Mile Chapter 1 and 2. But
Yeah, and can you imagine Joe Don Baker in 1 Mile Chapter 2, 40 years later, right? We love Joe Don Baker. But okay, that's it for this episode of Cinematics. I don't know if I'm leaving anything out. Eric will have some recommends. We have a lot of stuff to go through. We're going to be doing the spoilers to The Dreadful in a few moments. If you're a member of our Patreon, you guys get early access to these spoilers. We're going to put it up for you guys as soon as possible. Patreon members will also get early access to me and Eric's discussion of Psycho Killer. So if you're a Patreon member, you get early access spoilers, and then several days, if not a week later, we release it on our CinemAddicts YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel because we're almost at our 1,000 mark for our subscribers. That's very good. I'm speaking too much. Eric Holmes, lead us out. Do you have anything else to say or any other comments that I missed or something?
You're speaking the exact right amount. Yeah, to watch a couple other movies. Bruce already reviewed it, but Good Luck. Oh, shoot.
Have Fun, Don't Die.
Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. The Gore Verbinski movie. Watch that one. It was really good. It started off great because, we talk about the movies. They start off with like a great cold open, and then they cut to the boring crap for 20 minutes, and then they finally eventually get back to the movie that you actually wanted to watch. This starts off with great opening, and it just maintains that energy and sort of mystery throughout. If you listen to the Bruce's review, this kind of it's a Groundhog Day-esque kind of movie, but you're not watching Sam Rockwell do the same thing over and over again. You just know he has done that many times before, and we're just watching this one last time that he's doing it. So he'll he'll reference stuff that has happened in the past, but we never see that. We're just watching this last version of it that happens. Basically walks into like a Denny's. I think it's called I can't remember the name of the
Norms.
Yeah, there you go. It's a Denny's. But he goes in there and he's like, I'm from the future. And everyone's like, yeah, this guy's crazy because he looks crazy and he's got like stuff that looks like a bomb. He's like, people are all freaked out. And then all of a sudden he starts like bringing up like personal stuff about the people. It's like, how did you know that? Which the first time when I was watching it, I was like, dude, if you're a person that looks like a crazy person and you're from the future, lead with that. Hey, Greg, you're a fan of Sam Fuller. Oh, how'd you know that? Yeah, you're a host of CinemAddicts, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, he listens to the podcast. That's how he knows he's so crazy. But like, you lead with, anyway, yeah, it starts off really interesting and it's got some good mystery. I think it's kind of falls apart, especially like not just in the third act, but like once they get to the place that they've been looking for, like once the great and powerful Oz is revealed, so to speak, that's kind of where I stopped caring.
Oh, okay.
Because the reveal is like, oh, okay, it's fine. But it went from, oh crap, this is gonna be 6.9 star banger to it's still pretty good. Probably 3.5 altogether.
Okay.
But
all right.
But
you were expecting
it's
a little bit
because
more.
Oh crap, my
Which
brain
one?
fkind Anyway,
No,
doesn't matter. But there's like certain movies where like the ending isn't as good, but like you kind of pretend it doesn't happen. But you still like the rest of it. That's kind of where I'm at on this. I'm probably 3.5 stars on it.
Okay.
Cool. But I will say, like everything before that end reveal is excellent.
I still recommend. It's still recommend though.
Yeah, definitely recommend. It's just it's not great.
Maybe. Go ahead.
Also saw Solo Mio did an interview. I think he put that up with two of the brothers. I think there's 8 of them total that work with it. It's Kevin James or Kevin Smith.
Right.
Kevin Smith likes to joke. I always confuse the two. I never do, but whatever. But Kevin James, he's left at the altar. He's in Paris, I think, or France or Italy or somewhere. Italy, probably. But anyway, he's somewhere in Europe. And it's called Solo Mio. I should know this. It's gotta be it. It's gotta be Italy, right? Solo Mio. That's
of course. Yeah.
Italian phrase. All right. So anyway, he's supposed to get married. He gets left at the altar, and he's just kind of, oh, my fiance left me at the altar, and then he finds love, and it becomes a romantic comedy. Kind of by the numbers, like sort of what you would expect from this kind of movie. But again, much like the 1 Mile, it's or the Dreadful. It's just a really good version of this kind of movie, And so if you're down for a lighthearted rom-com, this will scratch that itch, and you can do a lot worse. yeah, I'm just 3.5 starring a bunch of stuff on this, but
No
yeah,
worries.
there you go.
Yeah, and
I,
again,
I
Eric
I feel
interviewed
like I should
John
do like
Canane.
4.5 because like with romantic comedies, like 3.5's like, oh yeah, it's mid and this mid for a romantic comedy. It's like, well, no, as far as romantic comedies go, this is like a really good one. So I should probably actually bump it up to 4.5, just because romantic comedies are so undervalued just in general. But
Mm.
yeah, so Solo Meal, if you like romantic comedies, it's a really good one. Go check it out. And then I also did an interview with
So wait, so that's a 4.5 for you or 3.5? More like a personal.
I'll stick with 3.5,
Yeah,
but
for you personal. Yeah.
in the echelon of romantic comedies, this is a 4.5 romantic comedy,
Okay.
3.5 if you can compare it to normal movies.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, numbers are hard. I'm not
Yeah,
math.
yeah, I agree. I agree.
But another interview I did was for the art show with Captain Skinner with Alan Cordell and Skinner. That interview, I believe, is up. You'll notice that the end, I become very quiet and it just kind of ends.
Yeah.
The internet got really wonky and it was cutting out, and then we just had to stop, which is unfortunate because they were great to talk to. And it's kind of like this 15-minute. I mean, they say it's like Bob Ross on acid, which is accurate. There's a bunch of kind of Guar-esque kind of. So the Skinner guy, he's painting this picture. The one of them he paints like a guy, the space guy with this cool helmet thing. Another thing he's painting like this Cthulhu-esque thing. And all the while he's just kind of talking towards the camera, making a bunch of jokes. A lot of them stupid, but I like stupid, so I like him. If you kind of dig the humor and the kind of very, it feels like they took a lot of acid when they were making this. They like shot it and then they're like, yeah, let's add a bunch of craziness to it. It's really fun. If I didn't know better, I'd say Steven Kostanski had something to do with this.
Oh, very interesting.
And it's got that kind of like, the Psycho Gorman and the Death Stalker. It's got that. I mean, it's a painting show, but it's got that same kind of energy to it. That same kind of Guar energy. That same kind of like 80s B movie. Yeah, it's incredible amount of fun. Really funny. Not going to be for everyone, but that's kind of how they roll. So if they're not for you, you're a loss, I guess. But our show with Captain Skinner, that's textbook 3-star banger.
Oh, 3-star banger from Eric Holmes. Yeah, and
yeah.
They seem like really great guys from the interview.
Yeah, I wish we could have finished the interview properly, but the internet or my computer or something wasn't letting it happen. So you do what you got to do, I guess.
Okay, well, that Eric's doing a lot of interviews, and credit to him just for all the work he's been doing I guess actually the past several years, just doing a lot of great interviews, and you can find them as part of our CinemAddicts podcast audio feed as well as on our CinemAddicts YouTube channel. Please support Eric's interviews there because he's supporting some really great indie films and film festivals. A lot of that stuff he's been doing has been really, really cool. We are done for this week of CinemAddicts episode 332. Bruce Purkey is up next with his reviews of Kukuho. He didn't do The Dreadful. Would Bruce like The Dreadful? It'd be interesting.
I don't know.
I think he'd be mixed on it.
See what he thinks of it.
I think Bruce would be mixed on that. But Bruce has reviews of Kokuho, this movie called Last Ride, and another film called Happyend. And the show is available on Criterion Collection right now. So check out Bruce Purkey over at the Cinematic right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to Cinematic, the attic of cinema, the Cinematic, where every week I will bring you 2, 3, 4 movies that I have watched that are coming up soon or have just been released recently, and very occasionally are older movies. It just depends on the week, but this week it is the former, not the latter. And of course, Greg and Eric are the ones who provide me these movies on general terms. So, what do I have this week for you? Like I said, 2 brand new, just coming to the theater or streaming movies. That is going to be a movie called Last Ride, even though the IMDb will say like 2024, if I remember correctly. It is a movie that hasn't really been out to the public till now. And then I also have a movie called Kokuho, which I believe was Japan's admission to consideration for the Academy Awards, although I don't think it got nominated as international film. It was up for the running for Japan. And then I also have Happyend, another Japanese movie that just came out last year. And for most Americans, it's just finally released and available for us to see on the Criterion Channel. So let's get into it. All right, first up, we have got Last Ride, directed by Sinki, I don't know how to say it, Sinki, Cinquee, Sinki Lee. This is it takes place mostly in Norway, in Vargoy, Norway, but I don't know if it's a Nordic production. It looks like it probably is. It is, though, however, in English. So I know some people are like, oh, it's all international movies, Bruce, which this week it is. But a lot of times people are kind of thrown off by that because they're not up for the, non-American language movies and having to read subtitles. Well, this is a case where it actually is in English. As the main roles you hear, you've got Devon, played by Roman Griffin Davis. You've got Jamie, played by Charlie Price. You've got Sid, played by Felix Jameson. What's the basic concept here? Well, it starts out, and you're out in the mountains of Norway. There's a drunken, passed out dude on the ground. He's woken up by an angry younger man who is his kid. And you can tell that dad is more than a bit of a drunk, it looks like. He's probably a lifelong alcoholic. The exasperated son is getting him up. Next to them, there's another guy who's kind of helping them out, and he seems to be maybe the dad's drug dealer, so maybe there's drugs involved too. You're not sure. Dad's kind of a mess. The kid's about to get out of there, and then he convinces the father, the messed up, hungover-ish, whatever he is, father, convinces his son to come along because he is there to go up on this tram. I don't know what you call them, tram, gondola. The cable cars that carry you up a mountain. A lot of times people do them either to ski or just for the sightseeing, especially like if you're in the Alps somewhere or the mountains of Norway or wherever it might be. They take these sightseeing gondolas. I'm just going to call it gondola up into the mountains. And the father convinces the other two to come along with him. They get in, and then we immediately have a flashback to 1982. And the rest of the movie, almost the entire rest of the movie, is 1982. And it's telling the story of the last time our main drunken character was there with his friends. And, it's kind of weird. I don't know if I was supposed to be paying attention or if it didn't say at the beginning. I feel like at the beginning of the movie, I wasn't sure which kid it was, which is kind of important. It's important not to know which kid it is because you're wondering throughout the movie, are all these kids still around? Did they make it through this adventure? Or didn't they make it through the adventure? That's kind of a big part of this story. Because the basic story is these three kids, they want to go up the mountain on this big gondola. Now, this is the older version, like the one we see at the beginning of the movie. In the current day, of course, is modern and cool and slick. But back in 1982, you're seeing the kind of a more rickety, old school version of the same thing. There's this old crusty dude. Would I write down his name? I don't think I wrote down his name. Old kind of crusty Nordic dude who's getting ready to go home for the night. In fact, the gondola is shut down. And the three kids, kind of convince him, basically through a shared love of the Clash. I think one of the kids has a Clash pin on or something, or they're talking about the Clash. And it convinces the old dude, because he likes the Clash too. And he says like, okay, fine, I'll take you on one last trip up the mountain, but that's it. I'm done for the night. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. And up the mountain they go on this gondola. And as you might guess, and especially if you've seen the poster, of course, is like way overboard compared to what this movie is, but it shows like the gondola and it's like sparking and, it's stuck up in the air. And of course, that's kind of what happens. And I won't say exactly what happens, but let's just say partway up their trip, the gondola is stopped. It's broken down, I will say. I'm not going to say exactly, like I said, what happens. And I think even in the tagline, it says it's like three kids stuck up there with a dead body. So let's just say, and once again, this isn't really a spoiler. It happens in the first, 5 to 10 minutes of the movie. The crusty old dude that's taking him up the mountain doesn't make it to the top of the mountain himself. So here you do. You have these three kids stuck up on this frozen landscape, in this up in the sky, very high up, not too high for them to jump, probably several hundred feet up there in this broken gondola, and they don't know what to do. How do they survive? Do they try to get down? Do they find a way to get help? What are they going to do? Are they going to just freeze to death up there, or what's going to happen? And that's the basic story. It's kind of a survival story. And the way I saw the poster and kind of the general way it's presented is it's going to be this kind of thriller and a survivor thriller, I guess you'd say. And it is definitely, to some degree, that sort of movie. There are harrowing elements. There's elements of them trying to survive, of course. By the way, I didn't say the age of these kids. I would say, just by looking at them, they're probably 11 to 12 years old. They're in that kind of range, that kind of preteen or early teen kind of age. They're not little teeny kids, but they're old enough to kind of make, in a survival situation, make some semi-intelligent decisions, but they're also not that old to make great decisions. So you wouldn't expect a lot of success with whatever they do. Anyway, they are up there, stuck, and then you're like, well, how are they going to kind of, I don't know, weed this out for a whole movie? In fact, in some degrees, it kind of reminded me a little bit of was it Fall, that movie where the two women went climbing up a television tower or whatever it was, and got stuck up there, and it became this whole kind of thriller. Once again, this is a lot less of a thriller movie than that is, although there's, like I said, big thriller aspects to it. One thing that I kept thinking of watching this movie is it's definitely a little more Stand By Me than it is the other side of things. And that as you're with these kids in this kind of situation that's becoming more and more dire as it goes, it's really about these kids kind of figuring out their relationship with each other. And as longtime friends, there's some drama in their past that you're going to get to discover. There's some revelations to be made. And you're going to kind of discover as you go through, like, well, who is who in this kind of arrangement of friends? Like, is one of them the heroic one? Is one of them the bad kid? Is one of them the coward? Is one of them the F up? All those kind of things. And I think overall it does a pretty good job. And I think it does a pretty good job of kind of upending my expectations. Like I said, once again, I was expecting it to be kind of just this mid-grade thriller, and it was much more of a relationship movie than that, which, depending on what you're looking for in this kind of movie, could be a plus or a minus, right? Like if you're looking for just a straight ahead thriller only, let's get to it, white knuckle it all the way, then you may be kind of disappointed by this movie. But if you're thinking it's going to be just a generic version of one of those and you get a lot more character stuff, then I think you might be pleasantly surprised by it. I think I'm a little more in that latter camp. I was surprised that it had a lot more depth for characters than I thought it would. Now, on the negative side of that, it is all basically a cast of kids. So you've got 3 kids having to hold all this weight, kind of in the same way that Stand By Me. It's like one of the notable things about that movie was how strong the acting and the writing was for all those kids in Stand By Me. They really held it down. It became classic because of it. I wouldn't say this gets to those heights. I'd say that there's some stuff that the kids say and do that you're like, okay, I don't really know if I believe that kids are exactly saying things in that way, and the kids are doing fine delivering the lines, but I just don't quite believe the lines from the kids. Once again, that's going to be probably a common problem in any movie like this, where you're just essentially just only with the kids and they're holding it all down. Unlike a recent movie that I reviewed here, The President's Cake, where it was almost all this little girl, a younger girl, where she really held it down. I thought this movie doesn't quite hold it in that category, but overall, I would say it is pretty solid. And I was tipping back and forth between, oh my gosh, what's going to happen in this dangerous situation? And there's multiples that come along, or, oh, that's a good thing. They figured out something, but is that going to really solve their problem? And then, that's not a good idea. Are they going to really do that? And I would say overall, that was a plus for this movie. I didn't ever know exactly where it's going. And there were a few moments where I thought it was going to just be fully a trope thing, and it did something a little different than that. And ultimately, a movie like this is going to lead to, how does the adventure end, and how is that as a satisfying experience? I think that it was pretty satisfying in the fact that it was, I don't want to give things away for sure. Let's just say it was brave to follow through with its story. in a logical way. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to say that the bookends were okay and kind of expected, but still satisfying, and that you didn't know exactly who was who until the end of the movie. And I would say overall it was a solid trip. Last Ride, I would give 3.5 stars to. Once again, a big expectation kind of movie. If you go in kind of expecting a little bit of, snowy, icy survivor thriller and a little bit of Stand By Me-ish kind of a movie, I think you'll have a pretty good experience with Last Ride. Definitely one, if it pops up on a streaming service, it's worth giving a try to. And it's not a super long movie. It's right in that 90-minute territory. Okay, next up I've got Kokuho. And now Kokuho is directed by Sang-il Lee. Apparently this is based on a very famous novel, and apparently this is a hugely popular movie. It was kind of a cultural moment in Japan from what little research I did, which was very little research. But apparently this is a big deal in Japan and a big hit, kind of an unlikely hit. And I can see after watching this movie how my guess is that there are certain elements, a lot of elements of this movie that resonate much deeper if you're entrenched in Japanese culture, because a lot of what's going to make this movie, I guess, tough for people to connect to outside of Japanese culture is some of the cultural references, and also just the world it shows is kind of going to be a world you may have nothing to know about. So how do I sell this movie? This is going to be a movie that's not going to work for a ton of American audience members. I'm going to give you your basic thumbnail description, and you're going to know right out of the gate if you're just out or in of this movie. So this movie, just in a thumbnail, is a son of a recently murdered Yakuza in the 1960s. The son of this recently murdered Yakuza tries to rise to become a master kabuki actor. You're like, what? What are you saying, Bruce? What is this nonsense you're going on about? So for most people, that right out of the gate is going to be just incomprehensible and nothing they can connect to whatsoever. I'm going to watch a 3-hour movie basically about kabuki acting. So if that sounds terrible to you and boring and just mind-numbingly not for you, it probably won't be for you. I mean, this is in a lot of ways kind of the classic Oscar-ish period biopic, even though it's not a real person, it's based on fiction. It still is a kind of path that a lot of people have probably taken in the world of kabuki. For anyone who doesn't know, kabuki is very mannered, extremely ornate, and very precise and very specific stage acting / dancing, kind of. It's like slow dancing, and they're always historical like pieces. Very, very, very like ornate, like makeup and sets and costumes. And traditionally the men play the women's roles, kind of in the way they did back in Shakespearean times. But it was much more of a big part of the tradition was that the master kabuki actors were the women's like lead roles in a lot of these tragedies and stuff. And they were often played, or always played, by the great male kabuki actors. It was kind of a thing, and you'd think like, oh, this is going to be about, gender roles and masculinity, and, is it about maybe sexual mores versus like, homosexuality or something? And it's like, not that at all. These guys are like rock stars. These guys are like assuming they are, heterosexual men that are playing these roles, they attract a ton of women. They're very, very popular in their time, at least as it is shown here, which is mostly kind of the rise of our main character somewhere between the 60s and the 80s is kind of the main thrust of this movie, although it does end up all the way in the 2000 teens. So it is an epic as well. Like I said, 3 hours. So the basic story was that. Your kind of a little more fleshed out version of it is you've got this young man named Kukuho, and Kukuho is our main character, and he is the son, like I said, of a Yakuza. And right at the beginning, the Yakuza they're having actually a performance by his son. He's showing his son off as this amateur kabuki actor, and an actual kabuki master played by the great Ken Watanabe, Hanjiro, happens to be there at this Yakuza's party that's being hosted by the Yakuza. And he sees the young Kukuho and he's like, wow, he's amateur. He's very much a prodigy. I'm very interested in this. And as luck would have it, the father gets killed. So Hanjiro essentially adopts him or takes Kukuho under his wing. He has, Hanjiro has this kabuki theater, a smaller kabuki theater, not like a huge one that's a huge, like big draw. But he has a smaller theater that's very highly regarded because he trains up-and-coming kabuki actors. And Hanjiro himself, as a teacher, is considered a master kabuki actor of his own right. And his son is also training at almost the exact same age as Kukuho. His son, Shansuke, is there. So basically, your main concept of this movie is Jiro's son, Shansuke, who is basically, imagine any master of any like craft, is expected to be handed down the role of the father and become like the new master. He's being trained to be such. And then here comes this from nowhere, this orphaned son of a Yakuza who is going to come in and just be like the rock star version of it. All of this might sound very like melodramatic to you, and in a lot of ways it is. Fittingly so, I think, because if you look at kabuki, it's very, very high drama in all of the kabuki stories. There are always things like a maiden is transformed into a snake because of the treachery of the man who killed her father, or there's some just giant like dramatic events are going on, and there's like magic and tragedy and all these kind of things happening. And so, similarly, the story is going to have some of those ups and downs, right? You're going to have this dramatic competition between the son of a kabuki master and this orphan that comes in to try to take over the role, and how will this challenge go between the two? Now, I think if this works for you, it's going to work for you as a rise and fall kind of a movie, a competition kind of a movie, someone learning to become the best of some version of what they are going to be. In a lot of ways, it works as a martial arts kind of a movie. If you think of it, instead of becoming the master of kung fu or some offshoot of kung fu or something and being trained by these grandmasters, think of that exact same kind of idea, but instead it's done with this highly mannered acting. That's kind of the pattern of this movie. And then on top of that, you add the element of there is a whole element in here of character and what it does to a person, or what kind of person it takes to become this high level, perfect idol in this world. Like, because you, of course, are probably giving up a lot of the humanity to get to that point that you would need, like, the time you might spend with family or people you love in your life or children. There's a lot of stuff in there about that too, how these people kind of sacrifice and end up destroying everything else in their lives to become these great, great kabuki actors. Very much like, was it Jay Kelly we had recently? Is that the name of that movie? Same kind of themes as that, but this is done in a much more like artistically gorgeous way because there's lots and lots of kabuki stuff in here. So if you hate kabuki or you don't know anything about it, you're either going to hate the experience all the way, or you're going to find yourself way more interested in kabuki than you thought you'd be, which is where I kind of fell down on this. I was like, I knew not much about kabuki. I'd seen little clips of it before, but here I got to see enough of it that I actually could appreciate like why people like it. And there is definitely a real beauty and vibrance to the way this movie is shot and the way it's acted. I think the one big negative, well, maybe two. One of the negatives is it is very long. It's very epic, and it feels epic, but it also does take a while to get there. So you are in for a commitment to watch this movie. Now, I think it was worth it, but I wouldn't be lying if I said it didn't take a while to get there too. But the bigger negative to me is the entire idea of these main characters, especially our main character, Kukuho, because the nature of his character to some degree is to be very closed off and very emotionally distant, and to kind of fall into these characters that he has to play, and to really be obsessed with like perfecting that world. And the problem with that is it makes it hard for you as an outside audience member to connect with him as a human being, because he the same way he's not able to connect with like the actual people in his life that are supposed to be his loved ones, it also makes it hard as an audience member to connect with him too. So I think that, and it's not like he's acting poorly. He's doing a great job acting in here. In fact, from all I could tell, the actual actors were doing these kabuki roles, which is crazy to think how precise and how much they had to do on top of just acting in a normal movie. But the drawback to that is, by being that kind of a distant character, is that there's a hard time somewhat really engaging with him and understanding where his motivations are exactly. And that's kind of a big drawback to a movie like this, but it's also kind of the point of this movie. But once again, I think it does force you to be kind of held a little bit at arm's length. There's a weird effect that I think this movie has, and I'm guessing it is why people have really connected with it in Japan. Once again, they probably also connect with it because there's a huge cultural effect of kabuki in general, so there's probably that as well. But I think one of the reason it might work is that the most emotional and the most connected you feel with Kukuho and Shinsuke and all of these characters is when they're doing their kabuki performances. Because it's like the one point where they have to actually overtly show and present their emotions. So it's almost like they're more human when they're in these really highly artificial characters than when they're outside of those. When they're outside of those, they take off the mask. They almost don't have anything real to offer the world. It's a really interesting way to go approach it, and I kind of really like that. So that'd be kind of a negative, though. Some people, it's going to be really hard to connect to the character himself. And last but not least, I want to mention once again the beauty of this. Like I said, if you put all the kabuki sections together, there's probably close to an hour of this 3-hour movie is literally just kabuki performances. But in each of those performances, there are stakes, whether it's like the first time they've ever done it, you've been watching them practice it, and you know that he has to do these things just perfectly, or maybe a character is injured. Maybe a character literally is, well, I'm not going to say, let's just say a character has a huge handicap and be able to do the performance at all. And as these performances go on, just like it would be in a boxing movie or a martial arts movie or some kind of a competition movie, by the time we get to the final kabuki performances in the movie, there are really high stakes, and you know that there are huge obstacles that the main characters are trying to overcome to perform in the way they're supposed to. And then the final relationship between Shinsuke and Kukuho is, between those two, the two kind of rivals. I really, really appreciated the ups and downs of how that relationship went, and it wasn't expected. I didn't expect the way it actually ended up kind of flowing, and I really appreciated that as well. So overall, I'm really positive on this movie, with that huge caveat that it is going to be absolutely not for some people. But if it sounds interesting, or you know nothing about the world and you're kind of like, well, that sounds like something I've never seen before, I guess I'll give that a try. I think that's the attitude you have to have going into it. And I think if you do, I think you can be enveloped and kind of immersed in this world. And you'll definitely know a whole lot more about kabuki than you ever have before, if you are like me. I'm going to go 4.5 stars. I think it's a fantastic movie, from the direction, from the production design, from the visuals, from the music. It's really, really something to see. The only drawback being that connection, direct and visceral connection with those characters. So 4.5 stars for Kokuho. Keep your eyes out for it. It's, I guess, been a sensation in Japan. Okay, the last movie I have for this week is Happyend. Just dropped in the last week on Criterion Channel. It is a movie from last year, but once again, I don't think it's been available for mass audiences in America until pretty much now. It is directed by Neo Sora. And there's a bunch of characters in here, but I'm not going to name all their names, or you're going to go crazy, but Japanese names. I'll give you a couple. Kou, K-O-U, played by Yukita Hadaka. And then his best friend is Yuta, played by Hayato Kurishara. And these are kind of your two main characters, although there's a group of kids in this that's probably about 5 kids that all have some pretty big parts in this movie. Along with Ku and Yuta, you've got Fumi, you've got Atachan, you've got Tomu, and you've got Ming. This is supposed to be in a near future, So it's not exactly sci-fi per se, but it's just in a slightly near future where things aren't exactly like they are now, but everything is feasible. There's no technology shown here that couldn't exist now. It's all stuff that does exist, but not maybe quite the ways that you've seen in this movie. And once again, this takes place almost like in a Black Mirror future where it's like, what if things were just slightly more authoritarian in Japan, and how would that look and why would it happen? And if you're kind of connecting to things that have been happening in America recently, it really connects in the style of how they do it. So the basic concept is you have your main characters. There are these 5 high school kids in Japan. And for some reason, all of them are outsiders. And right out the gate, you kind of get the idea of like, oh, there's a whole level of racial stereotyping and prejudice and stuff that you may not understand from outside of Japan that is part of Japanese culture, according to this, which I would believe. For example, one of our kids is part American. He's a part African-American, part Japanese. So he's got a bit of an outsider to the culture. Maybe another one is part Chinese, part outside the culture. Maybe one is, for various reasons like that, they're not considered quote unquote kind of pure Japanese, and therefore they're automatically a little bit outcast. And you see that kind of creep through the movie. But from the beginning of the movie, you can tell that they're just kind of outsiders in their own regard because they're a little bit rebellious. The very beginning of the movie, they're going and looking for this kind of rave sort of a deal. And one of our main characters, like I said, Ku is your kind of main one, and Yuta is his best friend. Yuta is like more into like the music and really into like electronic music and stuff. And he's trying to get him to this rave, and they almost get burst through from the cops. They run away and they get away out of all that, back to school. And you discover like, okay, they're kind of the rebellious kids in the school. And if you think about Japanese school, they all wear uniforms. There's a lot of, you think about the culture in general from the Western point of view, is that the culture is very structured and you really work as part of the group and all those kind of stereotypes. And this movie plays with that a little bit too, because as you're watching our kind of rebellious main characters in the school, you see this push and pull kind of representing the overall society in the way they're representing the rebelliousness within the structure of this kind of school. They're not always at school, for sure, but a lot of it comes out there. For example, there's this huge event early on where our main characters, as a prank in the middle of the night, they take the principal's car and carefully balance it on its end, like it's facing straight up in the sky, like balanced. So of course, the next day when everyone comes to school, they're all like gathering as a crowd, and they're all like, oh my gosh, well, how did this happen? And who did this? And of course, the principal's furious. It's almost like an Animal House kind of a stunt or something. And that becomes a catalyst for the principal to want to exert more control over the kids. And a little example of what they do is they install a camera system in the school, or I guess the camera system's probably already there, but into that camera system, part of it is installed like an AI facial recognition sort of a software. And in the courtyard of the school, there's a huge screen. And on that screen, as everyone's going through, you're seeing little squares kind of appear and recognizing people's faces. And if somebody does something, like they're wearing something that's out of uniform, or they're doing something that's unacceptable for the rules of the school, it will, on screen for public, it'll say things like, -1 point for Chan for wearing a skirt instead of pants as a boy, that kind of a thing. So once again, I'm not giving you a real clear plot, because this isn't like a plot movie. This is much more akin to something like, well, it's not as funny for sure, but something like Breakfast Club. Like, Breakfast Club isn't a plot movie. It's all these different kinds of kids that are stuck together, in trouble in detention on a weekend day, and how they have these interactions that reveal their characters, but also reveal the kind of the world that's pushing around them. And this is similar in that way, is it through the eyes of these different kids who have different goals, this group of kids, you can watch how this world is becoming more authoritarian and trying to control them more, and how they're trying to navigate their way in the end of high school into adulthood, dealing with the idea of like, do I become more conformist? Do I rebel more? Do I just leave the situation? Like, what do I do in this situation? And how do our two main characters, two best friends since childhood, Ku and, God, I can remember the names, Ku and Yuta, how how are those two going to maintain this friendship when they find themselves pulled in different directions? You know, one of them, the music guy, he kind of just wants to go with the flow and enjoy life. And hey, if life is getting worse and worse and worse and more constrictive, I just want to go and I'm going to get into my music and have fun and do crazy stuff and just, you know, do that to survive. Whereas the other kid, our main kid, Ku, is much more interested in like fighting the system. Like he meets a young girl who's very much kind of a intellectual rebel, you know, part of different like groups that want to actually protest and do things. And he thinks that like, I can make a change in this society, in this world, and I want to fight in that way. Whereas Yuta is like, you know, you can't make a change. Just party on and fight that way. Fight by just not believing and listening to it, that thing. And that's kind of your main push and pull of their two main characters. But it's a rich movie, great characters. All 5 or 6 of these kids that we follow are just a lot of interesting interactions, good characters. They all have their own motivations. You start to really root for them because none of them are bad kids, but the world kind of sees them as bad. And the last thing I want to say is it's very subtle too in showing how authoritarianism is creeping into the world there in Japan. And that's what the part I found kind of very secretly very interesting, in the fact that it does really reflect a thing that we see in America happening right now. And that is, in Japan, one of the big things they're showing happen in this imagined future is that there's always a threat of earthquakes. Earthquakes are huge. We all know this. You know, they had the huge tsunamis and, you know, Fukushima and all that stuff happen. And they use this threat as a reason to make sure that they have like special alerts and they need to have a little more control over the world, a little bit bigger crackdowns, just to make sure there's social order. You kind of use it as an excuse, a constant threat of earthquakes as an excuse to crack down on things and to hold things a little tighter. And I think that's just such a common approach for any authoritarian regime. Find a source of fear, find something to fearmonger to the public, to make them, you know, afraid of, and to give you an excuse to just have a little more control and to tighten the screws just a little tighter. And the other thing is, you'll see things here like there'll be a protest and the police in the movie will like maybe, you know, beat down the protesters and arrest them and, you know, tear gas them or whatever. It's not a huge part of the movie, but it's there. And then you'll see later on, just off to the side in some kind of a news report, how violent protest was shut down because protesters were, you know, and of course twisting it to say the protesters were being violent and that's why they had to do the things they did, which of course, as we saw, it wasn't really the case. So it's good on kind of a sly political angle, but it's better on a social character and just somewhat of a coming of age sort of a movie. I think in that aspect, it works really, really well and gives you a side and a view of like modern Japan that we don't necessarily get as much. I feel like everything tends to be, we get a lot of very, in some ways like America, we get a lot of very flashy anime, we get huge action movies, we get all these other things, but these very focused social, especially with youth, social youth movies, where it's just about relationships and what it means to be a young person in Japan trying to come up and struggle with identity in a society that doesn't really want them to be unique and rebellious. It's really interesting, and I don't think I see that much coming out of Japan. At least I haven't, but maybe I'm just not educated in that way. I'm going to go, boy, do I go 4 stars or 4.5? I really think this movie is really, really good. I'm going to go 4.5 stars for Happyend. Once again, it's about 2 hours. It's not a fast movie. This is much more of a hang with characters and watch them develop kind of movie. But if you like those sorts of movies, I think there's a lot to be had here. And I think the characters are really good and really engaging and easy to root for. So I'm going to give Happyend 4.5 stars as well on Criterion Channel. I think it's worth a watch. And that is all I've got for you this week. But on the good side, I had no terrible movies this week. The worst movie I had was Last Ride, and it was still a solid movie. So Last Ride, Kokuho, Happyend, all solid movies. Hope you get to check out at least one of them. And if you do, let me know how wrong or right I was. All right, everybody. That's all I got for this week. Once again, I will go out with my usual, and that is, guys.